Dukkha pata chani dukkha, bhaya pata chani bhaya, soka pata chani soka, ontu sabe pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear-struck be free from fear. May the sorrowful be free from sorrow. So too may all beings be free. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Uttam dhammam sangham namasami. So I'm feeling a little bit of unpleasant Vedana at the body door and the throat. So I'm going to just take a sip of water here. So thank you for your kind attention, and I hope the meditation instructions are useful. There seemed to be a theme during the winter retreat. Vedana was, seems like there was a lot of time spent on the element of feeling. It does appear in the Satipatthana. It's one of the Satipatthanas. This is why I think the Venerable Brahmavara had spent some time on it. It's very important aspect of our experience to understand. It appears in many places in an important aspect of many of the teachings. And see, I have some notes here. So I guess I'll just start with the basic definition of Vedana, as you know, is a feeling. And the Concise Pali English Dictionary translates it as sensation and pain and sensation. And then I did a little bit more research into the translation of Vedana, and it did come up, feeling did come up. And it's a further description of it is that there are 3 modes of feeling, usually understood whenever mentioned as made of sukha, pleasant, dukkha, painful, adukkama sukham. And they translate that as indifferent. And Bhante Sujato translates that as neutral. And then it's Bhante, Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, Bhante Bodhi translates that as neither pleasant nor unpleasant. So it's Tisa Vedana, the 3 types are modes of Vedana. And it's very important to understand Vedana. It's not emotion, as I was saying earlier. And it arises in contact with the 6 sense bases. And then I have a sentence from Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi's description of it. It's a bare quality of sensed experience, which may be either pleasant, painful, or neutral. So it's we feel the object of the senses is what he's saying, and then the object is experienced as either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So as I was saying during the guided meditation, we might hear a sound and then it's sensed as pleasant or unpleasant. Or if it's neutral, then we just tune it out. We're not paying attention to it at all. But maybe as it gets louder, we start feeling annoyed. And so then there's the emotion may arise, the aversion may arise, or the attraction may arise. Once we're aware of it, I mean, I could be aware that there's a humming in the background from the distant traffic, and that it's relatively neutral because it's so far in the background. If I start bringing my awareness to the sense of hearing, I can start noticing all kinds of things. And what happens is people start obsessing on something. This is called the contact at the sense doors, then it invades one's mind. And then the arising of unwholesome mental states arises. And the unwholesome mental states in themselves have a tone of pleasant or unpleasant and neutral. So that's the sixth sense. You've got the 5 physical senses: the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, the touch of the body. And then contact arises when I have a sutta here that explains it very clearly. It says, eye consciousness arises dependent on eye and sights. The meeting of the 3 is contact. Contact is a condition for feeling. So that's the same with the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body. Mind consciousness arises dependent on the mind and thoughts. This is Bhante Sujato's translation. The meeting of the 3 is contact. Contact is a condition for feeling. So that's showing that process. So we can be aware of that process. It's really important. And then we can just stay at the awareness. If we can see the arising of that, the awareness of the arising of a feeling that, oh, this is pleasant or unpleasant. Usually we're not, like I was saying, cued into that until we have aversion or attraction. So this is one of the ways to break the vicious cycle of being repelled or attracted throughout the day, or just sitting on our cushions. This is one way of this understanding, the seeing, this experiencing. Since Vedana is something we actually experience, this is why it's so important. We can see this whole process. We can see how it gives rise to craving. And aversion is actually another kind of craving, because we want it to be gone. we want it to stop. So that's one of the important aspects of Vedana, is that it's experienced by everyone. But if we're not aware of the consequences of that, then we're just kind of be led around by the nose by our desires and aversions. So this is one way to guard our sense gates. If you're curious about what that actually means, that restraining the sense gates. So this is one of the ways. When it's not just walking around with blinders, it's if I see something and I'm aware that this is a pleasant contact, then I can be aware also of the craving that may be arising. And then, but if the sooner I stop that from invading my mind, becoming obsessed by that contact, then the sooner, the weaker it is, and the more I'm able to protect the mind from it being invaded. And sometimes if I just say something like pleasant contact at the eye door, or unpleasant contact at the ear door, or something like that, but then I notice there's a version that comes up, say, and then I can say, unpleasant contact at the mind door. I'm starting to get angry. Unpleasant contact at the mind door. And then I go to my body, and my body is tense. Unpleasant contact at the body door. Anyway, so you're bringing awareness to this whole process, and it starts to unravel the process. So there are many ways I was saying that the Buddha talks about Vedana and the Satipatthana, just observing the arising and passing of the feeling at the sense doors that are right. If you're sitting in meditation, like I was saying, mostly it's just going to be at the body, at the ear, and at the mind, what you'll be experiencing is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So you have Vedana is in the Satipatthana. It's also one of the basic teachings. It's one of the 5 aggregates. There's form, and the second one is form is a rupa. It's a physical form, our bodies, and then feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. This is all nama. So this is all mental phenomena. So all this is how we identify with these khandhas as self. The ordinary person will see the body as self, and feeling as self would be my likes and dislikes are part of my personality. And so we can identify about our taste, my taste in music, my taste in art, or something like that, We can have a lot of conceit about these kind of things. Or who we identify with too would have the same kind of so-called taste in things. It's interesting that word is, but this is, and then our Vedana affects our views of things, if it's good or bad, it's a pleasant or unpleasant, and then we'll think of it as good or bad, our biases against things, all because of whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. And neutral, we may just not have any opinion about. Or it's just useless. That would be her opinion. Oh, I don't care about that. So there's the 5 khandhas. It appears in the 5 khandhas. It appears in dependent origination. So that's very important to be aware of, because the first links are kind of seeming mysterious, where how you have ignorance, and then volitional formations, and then consciousness. It's kind of like the previous life is shaping, or this life is shaping the next life, or the previous life has shaped this life somehow. And then we take physical form with the 6 sense bases, and then there's consciousness at the 6 sense bases that makes contact with the exterior, the sounds, smells, tastes. So this all happens, and then boom, Vedana arises. And then tanha is craving. So, this with the 6 sense bases and contact and the arising of Vedana and the arising of tanha or craving, this can be experienced. We can see this, and we can see how this is not just, there's an understanding that this is shaping how we respond to this is going to shape our future lives, but it also affects the current life. We can say this, we can see this too. If I'm just being led by the nose by my craving, and I get into all kinds of trouble in this life, then so it's going to have an impact. This definitely has an impact. So unraveling this or observing it closely, seeing, okay, I have how this craving arises, and also understanding the suffering, even if it's fairly innocent and we're just indulging in some sense pleasures that, it's legal because we have the means to purchase or come by it somehow. And then we're spending most of our time just trying to satisfy our, just our desire for pleasant contact. So this is just going to lead us to future rebirth. Whether, and a lot of people spend a lot of money to avoid unpleasant contact. I mean, just how you create your environment. You want beautiful things in the environment. You want the room at the right temperature. You want, ease and comfort, the right kind, the food that's, most appealing, all this kind of stuff. There's so much avoiding things that are unpleasant and trying to make for oneself a pleasant existence. And I was at our hermitage, you might know, for 2 months. And our winter retreat is in the coldest time of the year and the darkest time of the year. And the means are simple, and I don't have electricity, or I have a heater that doesn't work very well. And I can have a lot of mental dukkha because of the weightiness. Much of it's, I can focus on what's unpleasant. I can focus on what's pleasant in that. Also, there's a lot of it was pleasant as well. So bringing awareness to those kind of things, how we're kind of driven, how even our moods and things like that. It's cold, I'm experiencing physical pain, and I'm grouchy. So this is all springing from Vedana. So the more we understand this, the more we can, like I was saying, unravel it and we can see how independent origination, we can watch this whole process and how we land in suffering. There's like, it says, there's from tanha, there's upadana, which is clinging. And then, so that you can also see that in this lifetime. And then there's bhava, which would be propelling us to future existences or future behaviors. You can look at it that way. And then there's jati, which is birth, and then the whole mass of suffering. But usually what happens is there's the tanha and craving, and then we're just like propelled right into the dukkha, because even with the pleasant things, they're impermanent, and they never satisfy. They're never what they're written up to be or something. There's always some innate imperfection there. And, the most sumptuous meal, there'll be some little thing, or we get indigestion or something like that. There's so we're always being propelled into the dukkha when we're just trying to satiate ourselves through the senses. And this is happens again and again and again to some degree or another. So that's so this is one way to examine Vedana in terms of the independent origination. Somehow, I want to make sure I've covered all bases. There's a lot. Actually, Vedana appears in so many places. I don't think I'll be able to cover all bases. So, yeah, and so when I talked about Salayatana, or the six sense bases, that appears in dependent origination. But a lot of times when the six sense bases are spoken about, Vedana is always part of the process that the Buddha describes. So I already covered that. And then there's the three primary underlying tendencies, or also there can be looked at as unwholesome roots. But particularly in the teaching, the Buddha talks about these three anusayas, the primary anusayas. And each of and that's in relation to Vedana. So with the pleasant Vedana, you will may give rise or reinforce kama raga, which is a sense desire. And the unpleasant Vedana will give a rise to patiga, which is aversion. It's often translated as aversion, but that's anger, hatred, all these aversive tendencies will come up with unpleasant. And with the neutral or neither pleasant or unpleasant, then avijja, ignorance, the tendency for ignorance arises. So bringing our awareness and understanding how these tendencies are kind of arise from these three kinds of Vedana, this understanding helps to diffuse them, that we again and again will see them kind of flickering there. And if the more we abandon those tendencies, the more awareness, actually, awareness and understanding will uproot eventually ignorance. The knowledge that comes from really deeply understanding the Buddha's teaching is what's going to overcome the avijja. So Vedana in itself is not wholesome or unwholesome. It just arises with contact at the sense bases. But as I was saying, these tendencies will arise if we're not aware of it, if we're not guarding our minds from these tendencies. And then, so we have the arising of these three tendencies. What I have here, had a little more detail about it. I'm just trying to find it. Okay, so with sense contact, feelings arise, and then craving arises, clinging arises, and these all reinforce each other. So it'd be the same with, so pleasant feeling would bring up craving, and unpleasant feeling would bring up aversion, but there's a upadana, still this clinging that happens. And then these are all, this reinforces it. So we keep seeking out the pleasant and we keep being averse to the unpleasant. And then we're just kind of oblivious to the neutral. And then our intentions, views, and opinions start forming based on all this kind of continuous contact. And our views and biases influence the Vedana in turn. So if I had a pleasant experience in some context, then I keep expecting that to be pleasant. And I have an opinion about it, that this is good, or so my biases start to develop. And then we continue to seek out sense contact that's pleasing and that was pleasant in the past. So we just need to be continually aware of this whole process. This is a basic thing to help us uproot these underlying tendencies. I had another sutta that explains some other aspects of Vedana. And this is found in the numerical discourses. It's in the sixes. And it's called penetrative. And the Vedana is just one of the six factors that Buddha is saying that we should understand. It says, to be understood as sense pleasures and feelings, perception, defilements or the asavas, deeds or kama, and suffering, dukkha. So how should we understand Vedana? And he says there are these three feelings, and that's pleasant, painful, and neutral is how Bhante Sujato translates it. This is sukha Vedana, dukkha Vedana, adukkha sukham Vedana. And what is the source of feelings? Contact is their source. And what is the diversity of feelings? There are material pleasant feelings, spiritual pleasant feelings, material pleasant feelings, spiritual painful feelings, material neutral feelings, and spiritual neutral feelings. So there's the actual experience at the sense gates, the physical senses, and then what's called spiritual feelings. There's a different translations. Worldly would be of the senses, and unworldly feeling would be so-called spiritual. Or the other translation is of the flesh, the physical, and not physical or pure. So then the physical, as we know, is the sense gates, and then the spiritual or unworldly or pure would be some meditative states. And actually, the desire for higher attainment is considered the pain that comes from wanting higher attainments would be the dukkha Vedana, that was the unworldly. So this is a little bit more variation on the concept of, it's not just at the well, this would be at the mental gate, the potential for something that's beyond the craving for the senses. This would be considered unworldly feeling. But I just thought I would bring this in. This is to let go, to help us let go of our desire for pleasure based on the physical senses. We can find ways to find pleasure that's beyond that physical. And things like a development of loving kindness and the Brahma Viharas is actually going beyond the joy that arises from that. It's not based on, well, you might feel in the body pleasure, but it's not seeking out something at the sense doors. It's something beyond that. So I just thought I would mention this as part of kind of a overview of Vedana. But the most important thing is the observation and to protect the mind from being overpowered, not being pulled one way or another by the pleasant or unpleasant feeling that arises. And recognizing and deep understanding of Vedana or feeling in oneself is a very important contemplation, and it could lead to awakening and eventually overcoming the unwholesome tendencies or the anusayas. So I'm going to offer this for your reflection and open it up for discussion.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
So I'm going to change the view, and I think I should maybe take the recording off. That way people are more free to ask questions or